Anyways, I want to welcome you all, and these are just opportunities for you to ask any questions about the program. I've got a few slides to share and a couple of practices just to give you a feel for what it would be like. But I just want to hear from you, kind of what brought you here today.
Oh,
And there's Ant. You found us.
yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was just saying, I just wanted to start before we go to a few slides, just kind of what brought you here and anything that would be important for you about today. So I can maybe try to organize some of my thinking to specifically address things that are important for you.
I can start. Do you
Yes,
hear me?
excellent. I
Yes.
can.
Hello, David. I'm Anna. I'm from Sweden, and I'm living
Hmm.
on board on a sailing boat. I have just finished my circumnavigation, and I have done this transformative journey and writing about it. And actually, I've tried to reach you about it, but I have read your books, and thinking about this read the passage, and feel very
Hmm.
close to that. What you call distinction. And I've also read
Hmm.
your papers about the maturity. I'm an ICF MCC coach. Until December this year, I've decided to kind of leave that because what I've been doing the last 5 years is much bigger than that. And I'm very
Hmm.
attracted to the kind of presence stuff you're
Okay, great.
sharing. Yes,
Hey, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've been following, well, my name is Tracy Asamoah, and I'm here in Texas in the US. It's nice to
Hmm.
see everybody this morning. And David, I've been following your work since you started, I think, talking about it with the through the IOC discussion
Hmm.
groups,
Yeah.
and became very interested because I have been very interested in understanding more about what we should be thinking about as we continue our life after certification or credentialing or whatever that is. And what does it look like to really partner with people beyond the competencies? What does
Hmm.
our growth look like? And I come from maybe a different perspective. I'm a psychiatrist by training, and I've always thought that we are always in the room with our clients,
Hmm.
and if we don't recognize what our presence is in any given situation, then the impact we can have on the people that we're coaching could be something that's unintended, or
Yeah.
not in service of what they're partnering with us for. And so I've just wanted to understand how to have deeper knowledge about that.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just if I connect to what you were saying, Tracy, with what Anna was sharing, that for me, people choose to join associations because it brings them a certain sense of status and belonging. But it's really a rite of passage into the association. It may or may not have any correlation to mastery of one's craft, um, and which takes place often outside of associational boundaries. And I feel like one of the distinctions that we made in the IOC program was moving away from this focus on trying to be competent implementers of stuff to being able to improvise in any moment in time from a deep presence. And I feel like as the world continues to disravel, unravel, re-ravel, whatever it's doing, a lot of the things that we were used to doing just really don't, I think, wanting to form in new ways. So hence the need for maturity to be able to do that. So, yeah. And how about for you, Kent? Anything that's important to you? Then we'll come back and check in with Stella.
Yeah, thanks. Well, good to see the rest of you as well. Two things quickly. One, always trying to kind of connect with bigger pictures when I can. This morning, I received an email from somebody to follow. And, there was driving home the point that, entrepreneurs or successful ones, using that term very broadly, are always self-promoters in some way. And I just want to keep pushing back against that notion. I feel like there's other ways to go about this. You end up being a very helpful model in that, but there's such a plethora of communication from that framework that I'm trying to kind of immerse myself in the opposite to be able to balance that out, and also to, continue to dig deeper into finding my truer self and show up as that person. So that's the piece of that that I really, really appreciate. And I feel like all of your work, contributes in that direction. So, and then part of my reason today then is also just the logistics. I really am not familiar with the logistics of this particular
Sure.
thing. And so I'm interested just to get that figured out, because obviously
Okay.
with my work, it should be a challenge.
All right. And Stella.
Yeah, so I live in Brazil, and I learned I've been on the path for the PCC, to take the PCC in the ICF, and I learned about your work through my mentor here. And I was amazed. Her name is
Rosangela?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
wonderful.
Yes, so I was her in her retreat that she did
Mhm.
last month, and I also did a few mentor sessions with her, and I think she's amazing. And when she told me, so you need to learn about David Drake. So I just started to read all your work, and I learned about this program, and I feel that I need something bigger and deeper, not only as like the box in ICF, as you understand what I mean. So I'm
Yep.
here to learn and exchange with everyone here, and that's the reason I'm here.
Okay. Wonderful. And Christopher's on the call here. Christopher is one of our community members. He's acting as our sort of host for today. And so as we go along, if you want to put anything in the chat box, Christopher will keep track of that. And I see, John, you're on the call. I don't know if you're able to speak where you are, but if you want to check in, we're just sort of seeing what people are hoping for from today, anything that would be particularly useful for you.
Okay. I was introduced to you at WebEx when
Oh,
you were delivering your workshops there, and I was fascinated by your narrative coaching model
mhm.
and the bench metaphor and two people sitting and talking. And I'm a psychologist um, by trade, and now I'm into executive coaching. And a lot of what a lot of what I read and learned from you, Dr. Drake, is I, I'm integrating more of what I learned as a psychologist and human behavior and listening, and really began to integrate that more into my work, following your narrative coaching model.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just share some slides and we can, hopefully this will work. Yesterday in class, it was acting up, but let's see. There we go. So you can see this? All good? All right. Whatever was glitching yesterday seems to have fixed itself. So this is a 6-week program, so it's kind of an intensive immersion in this work. It's built around the 5 maturities, but we're not really going to focus on teaching the 5 maturities, but more using it as a frame for each of the week's activities. It runs from mid-October to mid-November, and then we'll launch some longer retreats using this work next year. But for now, this is just a wonderful taste. So I'm gonna just let you read this. There's no point in me reading this to you, but just give you a minute to quietly read this and see what stands out for you as sort of as an orientation to the five maturities themselves, in case this is new for you, and then I'll introduce you to the five maturities, I think, on the next slide. So.
Mm. Mhm. Mm.
So one of the hopes for me in this program for you is that if nothing else, you'll emerge feeling lighter than when you began. And so maybe there's be a whole bunch of things you can leave behind or what we think of as compost. And that in itself will be a new kind of victory and on our journeys to mature. But I'm just curious if anything stands out for you in this one paragraph, and then we'll move into the maturities themselves.
For me, I have really experienced this with adding on.
Hmm.
I can see how I have done that through my history and not the least coach trainings. And now during this journey, I have really letting go as a theme
Yeah.
more and more. And still after 5 years, it's the kind of thing, what else can I let go of?
Yeah.
It's so powerful. So I totally agree on that.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of a move from the States to Amsterdam, and it was amazing to see how much I didn't need to bring with me, and how
Yeah.
I felt, and how hard it was in the beginning. Because oh, should I keep this or not? And by the end, it's
Yes.
give away, give away, give away, give away.
Yes.
Um, and so I'm just trying to do as much as we can with that professionally as well. But anything else
Yeah.
that stands out for anybody else?
What's coming up for me is this concept of the maturities being a foundation for the masteries, and this overemphasis of mastering techniques or modalities or framework without any sense of maturity in ourselves of who we are as coaches. And the idea that there's some core experience that is missing if we don't think about our maturity before we jump to mastering whatever that is we're trying to master.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Welcome, Julie. Hey, Julie.
Hello.
Hello. We're just starting out. But I'll ask you the same question we asked everybody else, just in case you want to check in. Is there something in particular that brought you here today, or a question that's on your mind?
Well, I always love the opportunity to be in a space with you
Mm,
and see who else is interested in that. And no particular question right
okay.
now.
All right. Great. Um, yeah. So this is a graphic that we used often in teaching in our integrative development program, and I just always found it very provocative, and I want to use this as a way to think about and introduce the five maturities and each of the masteries. And so, obviously, it's a gestalt that all kind of goes together. But for the purposes of understanding the five maturities and developing the five maturities as a tool to help ourselves look at ourselves, we sort of matched up one of the maturities with one of the masteries. And so I'm just going to start at the bottom. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but it'll be a bit of an orientation that will help you understand the Lighten Your Load program. So competency is the thing that it dominates in most professional circles, and a lot about how to be a competent professional. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I also realized it's just one of five ways of thinking about our stature as a professional. As some of you know, I had long COVID and a whole bunch of other things for about 18 months. And I saw the limitations of our traditional thinking quite profoundly in terms of most of Western medicine had really nothing to offer me to try to find a path to healing. I met a lot of very competent people, professionally quite skilled, quite knowledgeable, and yet there was something about the way they were being asked to work, the way they worked, how they saw their role, that just said to me, there's a whole bunch of things that I'm missing that I then went and found in other places. And I could just see, to your point, Julie, and others, the striving people had, I've got to be more competent, I've got to learn more stuff, I've got to have more tools. I mean, and we drawing around these, gigantic toolboxes of stuff, most of which we'll never use, most of which we'll never really master. And I thought at the end of the day, is that what our clients really need? And so I think it starts in the roots of who we are as a human being and our capacity. And the example I often give is if you've never really processed grief in your life, you're not going to be very effective with a client who's lost their job because you've never been down that road enough to actually walk with them. So capacity is, who am I and what can I bring of myself to the work? What roots me in doing this? Free singing. That was like right on cue. That's perfect. Um, and then spiritual maturity, then if we're grounded in ourselves and can self-regulate, we can mature ourselves to actually start to see more. If we don't have personal maturity, we we tend to get caught up in our own ego. We tend to often blame ourselves or blame others, and we just miss out on so much. And I realized over the years when I was doing a lot of coaching demos all over the world that people were sort of baffled, like, how could I do what I was doing? And what like, magic did I have? And I said, well, a lot of it just comes down to I see more than you do because you're looking at this as a coach, so you can think of a coaching thing to do, as opposed to see more of what's actually happening. And then, from that sense of clarity, then we start to realize which of our competencies is actually necessary right now. So it's not tied to our model or what we think should happen. It's more like, what are we noticing about what's happening and what is that calling us to go do? And so that a lot of that means putting a lot of our competencies and skills in our back pocket until we actually see the need for them. But again, one of the things that competency models don't do, they just are basically entry requirements. You know how to do something. But to get better at craft of like coaching is around increasing our capabilities. Like, do we read the environment? Can we adapt what we know to meet an emergent opportunity? So these are our capabilities to effectively and wisely use what we know and can do. And a lot of it has to do with our ability to read the environment, to adapt to the environment. And that's, in terms of shooting up sort of through to become this flower, this at the top. And contextual maturity is really all about bringing all this together so that we have the ability to be able to discern in any moment in time what is most needed now. And so it supports our credibility as a mastery. And because in two ways. One is that we start to develop a deeper felt knowledge of how we work, why we work, what we do works. And so we can explain ourselves. We understand kind of what's happening. It's not done rotely or it's done with some understanding and felt experience. But it's also credible in the sense that it works. And a lot of the time, it's easy to get caught up in our interpretation of a session and miss the bigger picture of, is this actually helping the person on their longer term journey? And so I've just found that when we work more this way, it allows us to, I think, have more sustainable results. So I'm just going to stop there for a minute and see if there's any sort of basic questions about any of these for those of you for whom this is new. And then I want to just guide you on a simple practice, which will set up a longer practice to give you a felt sense of what the Lighten Your Load program will be like for you. But for now, are there any thoughts you have just about this little brief introduction? Christopher, you're welcome to chime in as well if you've got things you'd like to share. Oh, good.
Maybe I give it a try. So David, you mentioned something early at the beginning of this session, and that is mentioned that this is not a teaching program.
Yeah.
And I think looking at the maturities as you have outlined, it becomes so clear that it cannot be about teaching at all.
No.
But rather a space to experience and to experiment and to actually deepen the conversation that we're having with ourselves and our environment to build those maturities. And I'm just curious to see how you envision this for us to actually do and get there.
Which we'll do in just a second. Yeah, great.
Anyone else?
I
If you have any
No,
questions, you can also drop them in the chat box. So
Okay.
yeah. I'm sorry, but
Anna.
I'm gonna take off my camera because my internet connection is weak.
Okay,
I just let you know that. I'm sorry for that.
no worries. And was there somebody else who was going to share? That might have just been Christopher's voice coming in. Okay, so what I'd like you to do for just a minute, so one of the things about this work is we try to make it immediately applicable to you. So we use your own life and your own experiences in the practices. So what I'm going to invite you to do for a minute, just um, sort of create a visual image for yourself of the graphics. So you can kind of hold that in your mind. And then I'm going to guide you on a very brief guided practice as a way to kind of frame something you might want to address more fully in just a few minutes. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind just making yourself comfortable, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes. Yeah. And I'd like you to bring into your mind's eye an encounter you've had recently that in hindsight you wished would have been different. Could have been a conversation, an action, somebody else's action, a decision, but something upon retrospect you think, huh, maybe I could have managed that differently. And as you bring this into your mind's eye, I'd like you to travel all the way down to your feet. Maybe wiggle your toes. If you can easily take your shoes off, you can do that so your feet have more contact with the floor. And as you think of your scenario, again, ground yourself in your feet and ask yourself, what didn't I notice about myself? Or what couldn't I access in myself at that time? And my invitation is just to follow the thread wherever it takes you. We're moving into the realm of mystery, so it will be hard to know now. So just follow the thread of where it takes you. So from this place of where you might have wanted more capacity, ask yourself what you didn't see then that you might see now. This might be that had a blind spot. It might be that you were overly attached to one point of view. It might be that you had a hard time empathizing with the other person. But what didn't you see that would have helped? And if you could have seen that at the time, what would you have wanted to do differently? What competency would have been helpful for you if you'd been able to feel more, access more in yourself and see more of what's going on? What might that have led you to do? And then we move up sort of into the water around our social maturity. How would this have made you more capable? Like maybe there's some new energy you can feel now that you didn't feel at the time. It could be more calm, maybe more vibrant, more intimate. But what would you have liked to have done differently or more wisely if you had access to that competency in yourself at the time? And lastly, think about contextual maturity. 6 minutes. What is the overall sense you're bringing now to that scenario in terms of your understanding, your vantage point, your thoughts of what you would do differently or next time? What can you what can you appreciate now and looking back over this that might have helped this be better for you? And in our graphic, this is the flowers that emerge as a result of the journey that you've been on. All right. So I'd like to invite you, when you're ready, to come back to the room and just take a minute just to absorb whatever you discovered, whatever you did. And then when you're ready, I'd like you to just put a few words in the chat box, or if you're more comfortable expressing yourself verbally, just raise your hand and we'd be happy to hear from you. So Christopher, I'll let you track the chat box if anything appears there, but if any of you want to share, you can do that as well.
I can share. Yeah.
Yes, please.
I took an old situation from before I left, and what I saw was how I kind of at that time skipped the vulnerability because I didn't want to hear it. And I just saw how much the capacity, I didn't come to clarity and a kind of final decision and responsibility for us both. So, and the bigger context was, well, it was about this vulnerability, and the potential was also to meet my colleague in this case, in that insecurity and so on. That is so human. And I can see at that point, it was just before I was leaving, I was rushing. I wanted this and that. And, I was so stressed. And yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, when I've observed a lot of coaches, I observe them thinking about how to do a good job, which is great, and practicing their professional skills. But what I observe is less that they're not using their skills well, it's just they're not using their skills wisely because they're attached to what they think should happen or where they think they are in the model, or they're unaware, like you were saying, Anna, of what's actually happening for them that might be coloring what they're doing. And so part of it is for me, the one that I've spent most of my life on is clarity. What's actually happening here? What is actually true? What is in this? And so for you, and in your story, I hear this what is of I was stressed, I was rushing around, I had this big adventure, and I was really preoccupied with that. And so something I didn't, my energy was somewhere else. And if your energy is somewhere else, it's really hard to be present to what is right in front of you. Yeah. So, anyone else want to share whatever emerged for you?
Yeah, I can share, and then I can also read something from the chat.
Great.
One thing that I've noticed is that as I imagined a situation that I noticed different levels of difficulty as I was moving through those maturities.
Okay.
Some feeling a little bit easier, others rather more difficult. And it started quite difficult in the personal maturity, the capacity to hold without getting without losing touch with myself. And we have a similar comment here, which I'd like to read. I experienced the impact of not having a sense of safety within my own experience during a recent conversation. I wasn't able to create that experience of safety for the other person, my daughter, as our stories became enmeshed.
Yeah. And part of what I'm hearing in this, Christopher, is that in this work, you'll find that at any point in time, some of these maturities seem easier and stronger for us, and some not so much. And so the part of the value of the program is just to see what's present in your life right now and where might you spend some more of your attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna just yeah, so I just want to talk a bit about the program itself. Just you have kind of grounding in that, and then we'll come back and we'll do a second practice again. Yeah, and so for me, there's things you will gain from the program, but I want you to think of them. I know friends who have sort of a rule of thumb now in their life that for everything they buy, they give one thing away, um, or maybe even two things away. And so I think of it more like a house cleaning, sort of a Marie Kondo for our soul and our life. But it's less about how we organize the kitchen, although that could be the case, but more how we organize ourselves and our life and our practices. Yeah, and so that we can kind of end the year maybe with some sense of relief or release that will help us kind of move into the new year. And I feel like, we have a difficult election in the States, so it's a lot of tension around that. Um, and so I think again, we're being asked to show up in some different ways, and so this feels like really essential for that. So there's sort of four elements of the program, and one is there'll be live sessions. They will be recorded in case you miss one, but um, and then we're going to set up these pods, and we're doing it a little bit differently this time around to make them a bit smaller, organizing them by your time zone, but also time preferences. And you'll have sort of assignments and then freedom within your pod to basically kind of ground you in what from the live session really stood out for you as, and then some things that you can do about it across the next week to really start to experiment with it. We'll have a forum space just for participants in the program where they can talk to each other and share your reflections, invite people into conversation. And it's just a great way to realize none of us are doing this on our own. We have others that can support us and we can learn from and give to. And then the other thing that we have is, if you've been in one of our programs, we know we have a handbook. We have a much more simple version of that, but more importantly, there are spaces in the handbook, the PDF, that allows you to take notes as we go. And that way you'll have the material and your notes all in the same place. And so that will be available to you as part of this. These are the 6 dates. Now that I've moved to Europe, I've tried to be kind to myself to get away from midnight classes. And so we have 2 times each day for the same session, and they're each 90 minutes. And then you'll be given 8 options for dialogue sessions. So you can pick the time that works for you. They're usually within a day or 2 after the main session. So while it's still fresh, you can talk to your group. And then on the website, there's FAQs for a lot of the commonly asked questions, which you can go consult if you've got any questions. Yeah, okay, good. That's the last one. So are there any logistical questions about the program itself that you'd like to ask before we move into a second practice to give you kind of a more specific experience that would be very much like what you're going to have in this program?
Yeah, just a logistical
Easy.
question. Are we able to attend either the 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. if we have a time conflict on
Yes,
the
they
evening?
both,
Okay.
yeah, they'll be the same. And you're not, when you sign up for the program, you're only signing up for the program. You can decide to, on a given week, to come to the one that fits your schedule. If you feel inspired, you can come to both. Some people do that. But yeah, just make the choice that fits you. And then as always, they will be recorded and available the next day if you happen to miss both of those sessions that day.
I can just say I mixed up the time for today, so I will not join the later class today, just so you don't miss the Anna. It was me.
Yes. Yeah, I saw you at 5 o'clock in the morning so
Aha,
yeah.
Sorry,
No worries. It happens all the time. People, yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Okay.
David, a logistical question. So I understand that we have 8 options for peer dialogue
Yeah.
sessions. So this is organized around the time zones as I understand it.
Yes. Yes.
And then you also mentioned pod sessions. Are these also organized around time zones, or are we supposed to organize them ourselves? And how many are there?
So the pods and the peer dialogue sessions are the same thing.
Same thing. Okay.
The same thing. I just call them.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll correct that when I do the next session. But yeah, the pods are basically peer dialogues. So that's why I called them here. So they're one and the same. All right. So welcome back.
thank you.
Yeah. Just want to check in. I think we're missing somebody. No,
She
oh,
left.
that's right. Julie had to go.
Yeah.
So I just want to check in and see what emerged from your groups and how that might have been helpful to you. No one wants to confess their crush.
Well, I could say one that what's coming up for me is just this
Sure.
idea of, for me, it was just, part of maturing as a coach is getting out of my own way so that I can bring myself fully and wholly into a moment with someone else. Because if I can't bring my full self, then I can't connect with their whole self and their full self. And so being able to, and not that I'm ever going to do that perfectly, but being better and better able to see when there is a block there, or I'm not bringing a needed part of myself to that situation and not recognizing something in that exchange that might be more useful to that person.
Okay. All right.
And this all happened through my desire to have a walk and a conversation and a hangout with Michelle Obama.
Oh, excellent. I think that would be quite fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Would anybody else like to share? Or it's okay if not.
I say then.
Okay.
I would have spent the day with you, Dave, because I would love to hear your view on my journey.
Okay.
And I would love you to write a foreword to my book with your anthropological eyes.
Okay.
So I had a great day with you. I just tell you.
Yeah. Well, I will be up in your part of the world next year to do some things in Finland, so close by enough. So maybe we'll do that. But yeah, thank you.
I will hang around in the south of Europe. I'm not going back to Sweden.
Are you not going
I
back
will
to
stay on the
Sweden?
boat. No.
Where it's warmer.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
left it all.
Good for you. Okay.
Yes.
Let me just see what's happening in the chat. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I hope this was useful to you. Again, what we're doing in the program is to just create a lot of different vantage points for you to look at your own life and your own journey, your own practice, and to see what clues they might get you, offer you in terms of where you want to spend your energy around maturing. And like I said, we'll do a longer version of this next year, but I think this would be a really fun way to kind of just do a deep dive. So I'm going to go back to share for a minute, just show you just the last bit here. Yeah, so I think this was the last slide. Yeah. So we did our questions. And so again, if you want to sign up, we'd love to have you. There's a link here. Christopher, if you can we scrap that into the anyways, oops, sorry. Now we're in darkness. I upgraded my computer yesterday and it's creating all these new things. So yeah. All right. So that's all I have for today. And unless there's further questions that you have, I'm happy to stay on for as long as you want to get your needs met that way. And otherwise, I'll hope that you'll come and join us in October. So I'm just going to take that down, and see if there's anything else that would be helpful for you right now. Yeah, Kent.
One question. I anticipate signing up for this. I don't know what my work schedule is going to be, so that's always my variable. But the one question I did have is, it sounded like this was a precursor to some degree of what offerings will be made available in the coming year.
Yeah.
If for some reason I wasn't a part of this, would that disadvantage me in terms of
No,
gate rate or anything else for other
no, this just
participants?
gives you a head start for next year. But no, you would not. You can start next year if that works better.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
And that will be those, excuse me, that program will be for 6 months and not six
Okay.
weeks. And we'll focus not just on maturing and for yourself, but also maturing your practice.
Mhm.
Right now, just to keep this one simpler, towards the end of the year, we wanted to just focus on you as a human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the value? Because I feel I have let go of a lot in my life. Will it still be valuable?
I don't know. But for me, I find that we, yeah, the journey to let go, we go as far as we can, and then we become a new person by virtue of doing that. And then from that place, we see more that we could not have seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I've been having these experiences lately, which are just reminders that all these are practices for the final letting go at the end of our life.
Yes.
And and so everything that feels poignant or sad or whatever is just it's all a journey of grief and liberation from the day we're born. And yeah, and so I find um, it's just really helpful, and particularly the more we're willing to surrender to the mystery of what's being asked of us. And so it might for you, and it might be different. This might be more of a retrospective or reflection on kind of how are you now and what have you actually let go of and what does that actually mean now? Um, and again, the value of this for me and the value of not focusing on teaching is that this journey will look different for each of you.
Mm.
And so the lightness comes not just from letting go, but from a whole bunch of other things like not grasping, not taking on more new things, not playing roles that don't serve us anymore, all of which makes our load much lighter. So some of you might be doing starting to do what Anna's now finishing, which is the big letting go, but that's just really part of the whole process. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you would find that it's valuable as a setup for next year and the transitions you're trying to make. So yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that even though the
Christopher.
programs may sound similar, actually, this short program can really prepare you well to do the deep dive next year.
Yeah.
And it can be a profoundly different experience, even though the program is called the same. It's not just the same, but longer.
Yeah.
But if you can start with your own interpersonal work, you might actually get ready to dive
Yeah.
even more deeply into the longer program, should this
Yeah.
be of interest to you. And David, I was wondering if anyone of you has a question after the session. Obviously, you can join any of the other immersion and Q&A conversations coming up. But David, how could they reach out to us in case they would like to have more details on the registration or the program, etc.?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll add that to the slide for the next round. So thanks, Christopher, for reminding me. I didn't put that on there. So you can just write Steve and our team at miconnect@themomentinstitute.com. And if it's a logistical question, Steve will be able to answer that for you. And if it's not a logistical question, if it's more for me, then Steve, I'm just typing this in for you. Then Steve will pass that on to me. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Let me put it in the chat real quick.
It's already there.
Oh, you're already there. Here you go.
Kent.
Going back to our introductory exercise where we were recalling a recent conversation or encounter, I noticed disappointment rising up within me in light of just something that I had missed, and I was wondering, where does that tend to fit within those maturities? Is that back down into the personal maturity then, or?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where we would find yes. Just 1 second. Hold on.
perhaps Kent, my response would be if I was to imagine myself with all sorts of muscles that represent the different maturities, I would look at my body very deformed with some very strong muscles and others not so much. And for some reason, my muscle in, I don't know, professional maturity is stronger than
Yeah.
even personal.
I'll be honest.
And I think the idea here really is to see how we can bring more balance so that the whole body works.
One that they had done, but ironically, it was actually making them less exposed to me because.
Oh, there's some internet connection problem here.
Christopher, that was.
I was just.
You're not hearing me.
I hear you. Can everyone else hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We see Dave, but he's frozen.
David seems to be
David.
frozen. Yeah.
Yes, I'm frozen.
Now you're
Not anymore.
Huh.
Can't hear
Am I
you.
back now?
now you're back.
Yeah. Please continue,
Back.
David.
Okay. What I was saying, I don't know what you heard. Sorry about that. I just completely lost what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the person. So they were moving from a place of shame, which actually made it harder for them to take accountability. So for them to, because they wanted to be accountable, they realized they had to kind of go through their shame to get to that. And they realized that part of that there was actually was appropriate to feel accountable for, and part of it, to own what she had done and be responsible for that. But then when she went to a place of shame, it sort of crippled her ability to be responsible and show up because she didn't want to deal with that. So when we feel things like disappointment or judgment or blame, it's all an opportunity for us to increase and expand our capacity for compassion and to ourselves and others, because otherwise it just clouds our ability to even have clouds our ability to mature in the spiritual dimension. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Anybody else for
I
right
have
now?
a small question about. Yes, I have. You hear me?
Yes.
I have a small question about, because the logistic, I'm sailing and sometimes it's not working. I'm thinking, I heard that you are recording your sessions, but what about the small
You're
groups?
breaking up and you need to go off video.
Yes, but if I can't attend those, will it be bad for the rest of the group, or how sensitive is it to join the small groups? I can't really commit in advance with the time because the weather is bigger.
Well, so my suggestion would be to pick a time zone that you're more likely to be present for, but in your first session with your group, get an agreement from them. Is it okay with you if I don't make all the sessions? And if that's too disruptive,
I can't hear you.
then
You are frozen for me.
Oh, David is freezing up.
I'm sorry, Davey. I can't hear you.
Say friend is not, but yeah.
Oh, he's out. Well, so glad I can take over. He will be joining any moment, but I think I can try to answer the question. So first of all, if you are not able to join a full session, then the breakout groups, those will not be recorded because sometimes these conversations can be very intimate. But if it's for your pod, I would suggest that you make an arrangement, an agreement with your participants and ask how they feel about recording. And since you are given 8 options to choose a time zone, maybe you can also see if there's some flexibility for you to arrange according to your availability. It's always good to meet other people. I'm the community leader, and I'm always happy if people use this environment to connect with as many people as possible, because each time the learning is very, very different.
I understand. Thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So
I also liked what you shared about the 5 maturities to find a balance, because
what I was saying?
yes, what you were saying.
Okay, so I can finish the thought. Yeah, so if I was to look at the mirror, I would see myself with some rather strong muscle, like the skills and the capacities. But in terms of social maturity, I often find myself really defaulting and regressing, particularly in situations that are challenging. Old patterns coming up, old attachment issues, and so on and so forth. So for me, going back to what Kent asked, is recognizing the imbalance and trying to work towards a little bit more towards coherence in some ways, while recognizing that we are not machines and that we are, take this more kindly, perhaps as an invitation to grow rather than something that we enforce on ourselves. But I started, when we did this exercise, I started with the first level. I thought it was really difficult. And then once we moved to skills, I had many more ideas what I could do and so on and so forth. And I just took note where my energy was actually getting more open, more full, and where less so. So I like this exercise because it gently points me towards where I could be going to discover something new. Yeah, and that's also what I like about the 6 weeks program, because it can actually help me to take stock so that I could use, should I want to join this other longer program, to really dive into it and be much more prepared to do the work. Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems that David is not coming back. Is there anything else that I can help you with? Any other questions you might have?
No, thank you very much for the time.
No, thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And please reach out to the MI Institute for any other questions. Join another Q&A should you feel on the fence and need something else. You're always welcome to connect with us.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.